with the Deans Part 1. And my name is James Corbett. I'm a professor in the College of Earth, Ocean, and Environment. I've been in the School of Marine Science and Policy now for about 2 decades. I would like to welcome, first of all of the audience who are perhaps still logging in during these remarks. In the audience, we have about 30 to 35 people. And some of them are faculty and staff in our college or across the university. Welcome to you. Some are alum, even former students that we recognize, and we're very, very happy that you've logged in. And then I also want to make a couple of quick announcements before I introduce our speakers for tonight. This is the first of a series of events that is part of the 50th anniversary of the College of Earth, Ocean, and Environment. We're very, very excited that 2020 marks 50 years, 5 decades of growth from an idea that a few people, few brave pioneers thought was a good idea and had no roadmap for, to something that is a mature organization that's impacting the world over these last 5 decades and continues to grow. Then the other thing I want to do is introduce Dean Estella Atekwana. She's the Dean of the College of Earth, Ocean, and Environment. And she has been with us for a little more than 3 years, I think, and has been leading the college through a time of really good opportunity and transition. And in the last few months, through a time of great challenge. And we're really glad we have strong leadership that calms us and keeps us looking forward. So I join me in welcoming Dean Atekwana. And then lastly, I want to introduce our guest for the conversation with Deans. I'd like to introduce Robert Biggs. Dr. Biggs served as Assistant Dean and then Associate Dean with the founding of our college. And I'm going to give you a quick bio, and then I'm going to get out of the way. He joined the university in 1970 and was very, very quickly brought into leadership roles within the College of Marine Studies, which is the original name of the College of Earth, Ocean, and Environment. He has his PhD from Lehigh University, and after retiring from the University of Delaware, he became served as senior vice president for RF Weston, a major environmental consulting firm. Over that period of time, Dr. Biggs has amassed over 30 years experience in undergraduate and graduate teaching, in geological research, in understanding soils, sediments, helping the EPA and other clients understand how to measure and evaluate the health of our coastal estuaries throughout the United States. We are honored to be able to get to know again one of our original leaders and continued friend of the college, Dr. Biggs. And with that, I think, Dean, I hand it maybe to you to set things up as you would like.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Jim. And Jim is serving as the chair of the Celebrating 50 committee. So I want to acknowledge your work and that of your committee members.
That's right.
It's been great working with you as we have planned several activities and events throughout the year. And it was through this planning process that you guys suggested that we reach out to Bob. So it's been a real delight for me to get to know Bob just in a few short days. And I am really excited about this event tonight. History is important to me. I was actually a very good student in history. And if I had not chosen the route to become a scientist, I probably would have been a historian. History is important because it's good for us to know our roots, where we came from, and that's important to help us shape the future. So that's why we thought that with our 50th anniversary, we go back to our roots. Many of us are new to the college. In fact, a third of our faculty have been hired over the last 4 years. So you can imagine we have no point of reference in terms of how this college came to be. So it's going to be a good and exciting history lesson for us. And hopefully the goal is to take away with us some things that we can use to help, to shape that future. So I have some questions for Bob. And the first one is that in 1970, the University of Delaware's Board of Trustees created the College of Marine Studies. This new college actually grew out of a marine biology program that was housed in the biology department in the College of Arts and Sciences. So think about that. How did you go from a program in a department to a whole college? We want to know, what was it like? What was the motivation for creating a standalone college rather than it remaining as a strong marine biology program in the biology department?
Well, I'm pleased to respond to that. First of all, thank you for inviting me to attend. I'm delighted to be here. The College of Marine Studies, my background is I came from the University of Maryland. I had been on the faculty there. I had befriended a colleague of mine named Chris Kraft, who was the chair of the geology department at the University of Delaware at the time. And he and I became good friends. I working at the University of Maryland on coastal processes, he working at the University of Delaware on coastal processes. He told me about, in the course of our conversations over 6 or 7 years, he told me about this new guy at the University of Delaware named Bill Gaither, who was a civil engineer and who was interested in marine activities and stuff, and his concept of creating a college of marine studies, not a college. He made a particular emphasis to say this was not a college of marine science. This was a college of marine studies, because he wanted to include economics and political science in the mix of activities in the marine environment. So that really caught my attention, and I decided that I would like to talk with him about coming to the University of Delaware, which got me there in July 1st of 1970, a month after the college had been created by the Board of Trustees. At that time, there was no one in the College of Marine Studies, no faculty member in the College of Marine Studies, only a dean and an associate dean, and a dean and his senior secretary, and a group of interested faculty at the University of Delaware, all located within the various environmental departments: geology, biology, political science, economics, and a number of the engineering programs. So he had a group of faculty members at the university who were interested in this. When I came on board, he said, now we need, and by the way, and he also had available at the University of Delaware a marine biology lab located at Lewis. It was principally a summer school program institution. They had 2 or 3 people who were there year round, but by and large, it was strictly a summertime program. It really bloomed in the summertime. So that's what we started with. And they had a director in Lewis named Kent Price, who ran that Lewis program full-time, year-round, down in Lewis, and kept things going down there in the wintertime when no one else was there. And they had me acting as the assistant dean for academic affairs. So my job was to create an academic program out of this concept of marine studies. His job, Kent Price's job, was to maintain the facilities, which would become the focus, we always intended would become the focus of the college in Lewis at the marine biology laboratory that was down there. Now that, at that time, that was a very small one-story building with no academic capabilities or anything like that, nothing for teaching, none of that kind of stuff. So Bill Gaither had this idea that it was time in the marine and studies environmental area to be able to put together a program that wasn't just marine biology. Not that that wasn't important, but that wasn't just marine biology, but you also had the law of the sea. You also had all these other effects and operations going on. People were building huge marine structures that involved engineering activities in the oceans, platforms, and all sorts of other things. So he had this concept that we put together geology, biology, physical oceanography, chemical oceanography, ocean engineering, and number 6 was called marine affairs. And marine affairs was I'll call it the social sciences side, law, and other activities like economics of the sea, all of which impacted the marine environment, all of which were becoming recognized as being important to understand, so that it was possible to continue to run a marine biology program, but it was also possible to enhance a marine biology program by offering these other opportunities. And fortunately, the college was created by Bill Gaither and then President Arthur Trabant, who bought into this concept of Bill Gaither's. And this was done in 1969, early 1970. Trustees thought it was a wonderful idea, and they created the college. I happened to be fortunate, for me, to be one of the first people inside the door of this new institution, and I was delighted to do that. So that's in essence how the college got started. That was nothing but an idea. So, okay, Bob, now what we have to do is we have to develop a program for students and a program for faculty, and we have to organize this and put it into some sort of an institution that we can create. So that's what we worked on.
That's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, so you've talked to us about Bill. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Bill Gaither?
Yes.
Bill Gaither was a very interesting man. He was not, maybe that's not the right words, but he was not a typical in-the-box faculty member at a university. He was an out-of-the-box thinker. And it was his concept to have these 6 disciplines put together and create a college that would create programs. His basis for saying that, right off the bat at first, was this is to be a graduate program. He didn't think of it as being an undergraduate program at all. I don't know for what reasons he specifically wanted that. Probably it involved politics of the university. He didn't want to take away students from other programs in chemistry or biology or law at the university. He didn't want to be a threat, probably. But he never told me that. But I believe that's what he thought. So he said, this is going to be a graduate program. And marine biology can continue to have, the biology program at the university can continue to have a graduate program in biology. We're not threatening you. We're not usurping your authority. We're not taking your resources. We're creating something different. So that's how he did it. Now, what he did that was so exciting for me and so awesome for me was, as you might expect, there was a substantial group of faculty at the university who regarded the concept of the College of Marine Studies as a threat.
Mhm.
And he was singularly able, in my opinion, to minimize that threat and defuse that threat by offering all kinds of opportunities to the faculty. So when a faculty member would come in with his, from one of the other sciences, would come in with his hair on fire about, we're going to take all the resources from the regular people at the university and stuff like this, and we're coming to do all this sort of thing. His solution always was never get upset, never get excited, always stay calm, and just keep asking the questions, how can we work together? And he just did that, and eventually it disarmed enough of the other folks who were opponents of creating this new institution that was going to take part of their resources, and may take some of their faculty, may and somehow reduce their own strengths within the institution. He just came back and said, how can we work together? How can we work together? He said it again and again and again. Never lost his temper, never got upset, never, I'll say never, never in my presence got excited and threw down a gauntlet or anything like that. He was always accommodating. And that's what allowed him, I'll say single-handedly, with the help of a couple of other people only in the institution, but with the president's blessing, to be able to create the college.
That's really interesting, to hear. Because it seems that you do need allies in the upper administration.
Yes.
And to have found a niche area that wasn't going to be a threat for other people. It makes more sense to me, at least sitting now as dean, why the college started as a graduate college only. It made more sense because probably he felt that he was going to not get a lot of resistance if he, focused on graduate education.
Yes.
So you were charged with establishing the new college's academic program. How did you approach that task? What direction did you believe the new College of Marine Studies needed to go in order to be successful?
The first rule of thumb, the first activity we created was a faculty forum that involved all interested faculty at the university. Interested faculty meant faculty who voluntarily said, I'd like to be part of your program. I'm not leaving my department in which I'm currently employed. I just want to be, but I would like to be part of your program. So we acquired a fairly substantial group, probably 15 or 20 faculty members from various disciplines who said, I'd like to do something with you folks, or I'm already doing something like you're doing that blends in with what you are proposing. So that was the basis for the creation of the academic side of the program that I was responsible for. And we put together a series of, which seemed common sense at the time and common sense now. Well, if you're going to, we're not going to have departments, but if you're going to have departments, there should be the typical departments: biology, physical oceanography, chemical oceanography, geological oceanography, ocean sciences, and marine studies, the social sciences aspects too. So we should have 6 compartments we thrashed it through and went from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 and ended up on 6 and said these are the 6 area disciplines, if you will, that we can combine to create a faculty, and we'll use those as the basis. Now, and that means we'll have academic programs in each of those 6 areas. So it was as simple and as complex as that, and it was fairly easy to, it was fairly straightforward to create the 6 units that we had in the College of Marine Studies.
So what you've just said is really interesting to me, especially the social science component. Why did you guys think in those days to include a social science component as part of the college?
Part of it, a substantial part of that was my doing. My work in geological sciences had been when I came from the University of Maryland, had been mostly work associated with engineers and with social scientists. That is, I was working on coastal processes, and I was asked by Ocean City, Maryland, to advise them on a program. This before I came to Delaware. This is while I was at the University of Maryland. Advise them on a program for Ocean City, Maryland, on how they should build structures close to the sea, knowing that the shoreline was eroding in that area, and should there be setbacks and all kinds of legal things. So they wanted me to help them understand all the processes that were involved in building and construction. So it was more than just coastal erosion because it's an interesting academic activity. It was, they wanted to save the city. They wanted to be able to have reasonable zoning laws and stuff. And they dragged me into understanding all that kind of stuff and interact with all those kinds of folks. So that I quickly found that there was an opportunity there to have an important impact on our society through marine geology, which people think of as, well, you know, you're worried about the coast and the erosion and the shore and the water going in and the water going out and all kinds of things like that. But in addition, there's all this component of the law and regulations, and people want to put buildings up, and how can we regulate those sorts of things? So I became involved with all those kind of people very quickly, and several other civil engineers who worked at the university at the time. One principal, one named Bob Dean, was in civil engineering. He was, because of his engineering background, he was actively working with social scientists all the time, regulations, laws, activities like that are required. So that's how it came along.
That, to me, that was really visionary, because even today, the problems that you guys were addressing at that time continue to be the problems, you know, that we are also focusing on. And so, you know, my next question for you is, what were some of the notable research your faculty worked on in those days? And what were some of their landmark contributions to this whole, you know, coastal geology, coastal marine processes?
And you're right, to focus in on it being coastal areas. Those of us on the faculty at that time, in the first, say, 5 years of the creation of the college, were focused on coastal activities. Whether it was the attorneys working on coastal zone resources, or the social scientists working on marine recreation activities and interest in marine recreation, or the biologist or the chemist or the physicist working on the quality of the water and the transport of materials and all sorts of activities like that. It was really important for all of us to stay focused on those sorts of things that dealt with coastal processes. And at that time, the National Oceanographic Administration, NOAA, had only just been, was a seedling organization and had just been created. And now there was that federal interest in coastal activities and coastal processes. And that fed us with the ability to think outside the box and think about things like that. I had initially, one of my early activities was involved with a corporation, some consulting activities that I was doing as a young man, where a company had gave me a call and said, "I'd like to talk with you about coastal erosion." I said, "Sure." And they said, this was my first introduction to it at the time. I mean, I was really a naive young kid. And this company came and they said, "Here's what we need to know. We need to know in Ocean City, Maryland, what's the probability of a storm surge greater than 8 feet in the next 3 years?" And I said, "What?" And they said, "That's your question. Can you answer it?" I said, I can give you an answer to the question about the probability. So it made me instantly leave my geology thing of worrying about sediment cores and sediments and get involved with historic weather records and all the tidal data from the last 50 or 70 years from that coastal area, and all the storm surges from the last 70 years from that area, and put that all together into a program that said, in which I told them there's less than a 10% probability that there's going to be a major storm surge in Ocean City, Maryland in the next 10 years. And whatever the number was, it was like that. And they said, "Thank you very much." And I said, "But why do you want to know that?" And they said, "Because we have just taken out a loan to build a $20 million condominium on the coast. And we've just taken out a loan for it, and it's a 3-year loan. We're going to build this facility. We're going to sell these condominium units, and we're going to be out of here in 3 years and have no more responsibility, but we want to know what the probabilities are." So that really opened my eyes, and several of my friends on the faculty who I spoke with about these activities, and said, "This is really interesting. There is a big business here in this, and there's a lot of interest and a lot of things we had never thought about."
That's so interesting. So fast forward 50 years later on, did they build a condominium, and has it lasted?
Yes, they built it. It's still there.
That's good. That's good. Given the recent, the frequency of storm surges that we now have due to the whole impacts of climate change.
Yes.
And so the other question along those lines about the research that your faculty were working on at that time, what do you think was the achievement, what achievement from the college or its faculty in the early years had the biggest impact in the field, you think?
That's a very difficult question for me to try to answer. Even now, historically, we had our faculty here at Delaware had done a substantial amount of research on pollution activities and ocean science activities. We helped various members of our faculty, not including me, developed ocean outfalls for pollutants and how far they should be located offshore and what size they should be and those sorts of things, which protected the Delaware coast. Simultaneously, those same faculty members went to other areas of the nation and helped those people in other jurisdictions also. We did a lot of work on shore erosion, coastal activities on the Delmarva coast, Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia. but the principal, I was trying to think of the principal impacts that would affect marine biology, and I'm hard pressed to name them. We're still really struggling with conserving our marine resources, marine biological resources, the organisms. We're really struggling with that due to a whole host of factors, including those that we think we can control, and those that we don't think or haven't thought we could control or never anticipated, like sea level rise, climate change. We had never, I won't say we never thought about that. We used the sea level rise curves that were developed by Chris Kraft at the University of Delaware here. We used his sea level curves that he had developed, and it showed very clearly that sea level was rising a foot per century. And that was historically true over the last 8,000 years, long before we ever had pollution. And I must say, we never even thought that we would have an acceleration of coastal sea level rise or climate change due to man's activities.
Yeah.
We never thought about it that way. Never thought about it.
Yep, a lot has happened, since the last 50 years. So you were an administrator, and you've just mentioned about being able to continue in research. So how did you balance that?
While I was on the faculty?
Yes, that when you were serving as the assistant dean, trying to put this new program together and still having the time to do research, so how did you manage that?
I had a lot. First of all, most important thing was I had a very strong foundation in what we were trying to do. And it was well known. We weren't constantly evolving, which didn't require my full attention to how we were moving the college, or how the college was moving through the universe or through the university. But I have to say that I had a substantial group of graduate student advisees of mine who were my rocks. They were my people. They were wonderful students at the university who kept me grounded in science.
Yes.
And kept me grounded in what I was supposed to be doing instead of worrying about the administration of the college and whether the what did we used to call it? We had a vehicle that would go up and down the coast between Lewis and Newark every day. Do they still do that?
Sure.
The
No.
shuttle? No.
We don't have a shuttle anymore. Yes.
Okay. We had a shuttle. And people used to really be worried about that. I was never worried about the shuttle. I was worried about other things that were more important than I thought. The shuttle at that time was critical. It was a critical link. I mean, the mail between Lewis and Newark didn't always go through. Payrolls didn't go through. People didn't get their checks. It was loose. It was just a loose time.
So in those early days, were all the faculty in Lewis, or were they split between Lewis and Newark?
They were between Lewis and Newark. I'll say, I'm guessing, 25% of the faculty were in Lewis, 75% of the faculty were in Newark. Newark had still, early in the history of the college, Newark still had the computer science capabilities, the backgrounds, the modeling, those kinds of technical activities that were at the time really only done on the main campus in Newark. Whereas the oceanography part, the field activities, the people who were working on aquaculture principally worked at the coast, and just at that time, that's the way things were. Now, when we And when we started the college, Bill Gaither, another one of his ideas was, you know what, we have to buy enough land around here. We're going to create a first-class institution here. This was all his idea. First-class institution here where we invite industry and federal laboratories to locate here at Lewis. So that's what I regard as our one failure. And we were never able to accomplish that to any substantial degree.
That is so, it's interesting because that was the next question I was going to ask you, is that was there anything you left undone? And do you think it's been accomplished by your predecessors? Or is this something you still would like to see happen in the future?
Well, I guess there are, we had thought 50 years ago, we had thought, of course, we have to have industry here. We have to have the interaction with industry and academics. We have to have federal government here. We have to have, and maybe even regional governments larger than states here, locating with their laboratories, their facilities, providing us with opportunities to interact with scientists and engineers who are working in industries. And down here in this remote location in Lewis, 2 hours away from the center of the university activities, that would be hard to do without creating a whole other university campus, or better yet, getting industries and other agencies to come in and fund and run their own operations, providing us with opportunities for students to have all sorts of research capabilities. Didn't happen.
That is really interesting because, as you know, the college has just completed its new strategic plan. And that is something that is included in the plan to be able to attract industry, some regional partners, to take advantage of our facilities in Lewis and the amazing research, that's going on there. So the university has been able to do that with our new Star campus. I don't know if you're familiar with the new Star campus. It used to be where the old Chrysler plant used to be.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
It's a beautiful campus right now, and we've been able to, universities been able to attract, pharmaceutical companies and some chemical companies to join the university to take advantage, of course, of the intellectual products and the research of the faculty, as well as be able to mentor students in their research. So to some degree, that's been accomplished on the main campus, but not on our Lewis campus. But rest assured, it is in the strategic plan, and already we do have some faculty that have been able to. We've been able to sign an MOU with Ocean Infinity, and Ocean Infinity, yes, it's a startup really focused on technology on the ocean floor, and so using our robotics discovery lab, we've used that as a leverage to encourage them to work with us collaboratively. So it was your dream 50 years ago. It wasn't realized, but rest assured, we are working towards realizing that goal. We think it's very, very important to have this industry partnership, not only because it provides funding for our faculty, but I think it's bi-directional, and we can provide them with students, give our students the opportunities to be able to have internships. So that is my goal, for the college, is that we're able to develop these types of partnerships that can interact with both our faculty and our students, and both parties, benefiting from that. So we do have that on our radar screen to be able to have that. Yes. And so I guess my last question for you really was that, given what the college has become today, what do you think sets it apart from other colleges across the country that are set up, close to, that are set up across the country similar to ours? For example, I think about the College of Geoscience, for example, at the Texas A&M, or Oregon State's College of, I think it's called Earth, Ocean, and Atmosphere. So those are some colleges that are set up almost similar, to us.
Yes.
Yes. So, so the question is that what do you think really sets us apart from these other schools?
I still think that one of the principal things is to add the industry and the government laboratory facilities where that interaction can occur. That would help the University of Delaware to continue its achievements that are as of yet unresolved. You still have the land. I think it's wonderful. You have the facilities. You have the land for the facilities down there at the present time. You have a stable, substantial faculty and facilities. You have a major research vessel. You're ready to go.
That's great. So have you had a chance to come back to campus at all?
No. Well, I guess I've come back a couple times and come around a little bit. Are you talking about Lewis?
Yes, I'm talking about the Lewis campus in particular.
Yeah. Yes. I've come back and walked around.
Yes. In 2012, I believe, 2012 or 14, it had a major facelift. And so the campus looks really nice, right now.
I'll come back again.
Yes, you should. You should come back again. So that really brings us to the end of the questions that I had for you. And I think what we'll do now is to open the Q&A to the audience or to the participants to be able to ask you a question if they have any.
Light shining on me.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
So over to you, Mark. Is it Kevin?
Is it above you?
No.
Okay.
Or is it Jim?
Well, I can work on things. So those of us that are online as an audience member, which is the way I've been, you should see at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side, when you scroll over these windows, if you are on the Zoom meeting, there's a Q&A function. And if you touch that, you should be able to open that up and ask a question. And I believe that, I don't know exactly how the Facebook system might work for forwarding questions. But let's begin, Bob, I'm going to read some of these to you so you don't have to manage all those pieces. But you talked about the 6 different components of the original college, the programs.
Yes.
Can you list them off again? Because I know when I joined, there were about 4 major programs, and they may have combined some components.
Things may well have changed, but it was physical oceanography, chemical oceanography, marine geology, and marine biology. That's the 4. Then there was ocean science, which was the engineering activities, and marine affairs, which was the socioeconomic, legal aspects. Those were the 6 programs. And I fully expected after 50 years, they would have all been modified in major ways.
Actually, they're still all there, but not in 6 different programs, right?
Yes.
We still have the biology. We still have the ocean science. It's now called the POSE program, I believe. Is that correct, Jim?
That's correct. Yeah.
And the marine affairs right now, I think, is probably the policy program. It's now the policy part.
Yeah, we have 4 degree programs that are degree programs that I think there's only 4 still.
There's 4, yeah.
Have different degrees and dual degrees, but we do have a marine policy degree program, and it is the name that we have now for what you would have called marine affairs.
Yes.
So in essence, all 6 are still there, just reshipped, restructured differently.
Sure.
So another question I have is in that program discussion, when did you first see home tenure appointments, the actual lines of faculty from people that were associated with other colleges. In the early times, they had sort of a dual-footed role. At what point did you start seeing people become hired into the college directly? And
Oh, yeah. By 1971, 1972, the first 2 or 3 years of the creation of the college, we did hire a series of, I didn't, but the college hired a series of senior investigators in almost every one of those 6 areas, new senior people, or used existing senior people who were on the faculty already in another program who came over. So we hired a new senior guy. I'll just make some examples, not because they're the only ones I can think of offhand. Gerard Mangone was in marine policy, and he was law of the sea kind of guy. He came in and ran the program in marine policy. Lee Anderson ran the program in ocean in fisheries resources, social aspects of fisheries resources, marine economics. We hired a new guy named Blair Kinsman who ran the physical oceanography program. He only stayed with us for like 2 years, and he just couldn't deal. He couldn't deal with integrating physical oceanographic activities with anything else.
Oh.
So it just didn't work. It just didn't work out. He was baffled by this program. We had Kent Price was down in Lewis at the time. He became the associate dean for all these activities. He was already here at the university. Bob Dean in ocean engineering, coastal processes, was already here in the civil engineering department at the university. So it was this eclectic mix of new people with their own ideas and people who are already here with their own ideas on both how their programs should be run and how the college should be run to support all their programs. Very interesting. It was really very challenging and fun.
Well, good. We have a question from faculty and alum. You mentioned Gerard Mangone, and Professor Mangone was key when I was hired. But there's a couple of questions that want to ask if you can talk a little more about him. You know, how he advanced the program, or you know, let us know more about the kinds of things, the kind of impact he had as he came in.
Yes, he had impacts in 2 special ways. One was his own interest in the United Nations and the law of the sea, especially, and he was a very strong proponent of the law of the sea and its international enforcement. He had contacts at the United Nations and a whole bunch of other major global institutions that most of us had never had an opportunity to even talk to or talk about. He was very good at that. That on the one side. On the other side, the man was a shrewd politician. He knew how to charm a witch. He could do what needed to be done in the college, and he helped me immensely in the college in those early formative days by suggesting, this is how a politician would do this and would handle this activity or challenge as it was. He was excellent at that. So he did both of those things. He brought a real class. He brought real class to the college by bringing in colleagues of his from other locations to give seminars to the faculty, give seminars to the university. He would bring in people from all around the world, and it was very impressive to see. Good man.
Very, very good. There's some other questions that I want to make sure we get to, but there's a couple of questions about the early student, the recruitment, et cetera. One of the questions is really useful. I almost want to read it out loud, word for word. But early on, at least in the geology program, the student makeup was generally more all male. And it was probably the same in some of the other marine studies programs. When did you see the recruit students? How did you recruit students early on, and what was the profile makeup that maybe has evolved over the years during your tenure as in leadership here?
Well, this is just a guess. I would guess that the makeup early in the college was probably, I'll say 2/3 male, 1/3 female in the makeup across the college, of the students across the college. And some programs had a higher proportion of males, some had a higher proportion of females, but I would have to say it was something like that. It wasn't just a bunch of guys.
Well, so early on, when you were starting out and you had a lot to do with the early academics, how did you get the first grad students to, what kind of teeth did you have to pull to get people here?
We had a lady, I can't remember who it was. Pam Donnelly can probably tell you who it was, but we had a lady who worked in our marine resources group early in the college history, whose partial job was to recruit females to our program, which on purpose.
Wow.
And that was 50 years ago. Yeah, well, maybe it was only 46 years ago, but it was early in the history of the college, certainly in the first 5 years. We were especially trying to recruit women, keeping in mind that all of us, the faculty who were involved in this program and the students who were involved in this program, were really taking a gamble, a risk that those students would be employable. Remember, it was 50 years ago, you had to have a degree in marine geology to be able to do marine geology. You couldn't have a degree in marine science or something like that, or physical oceanography or something. It was very difficult. And at that time, our employment situation in the United States was very much compartmentalized compared to now. It was much more difficult. So, or at least we thought it would be much more difficult. So we said, we've got to be really careful here. We're going to produce a bunch of people who can't get a job. And that's the last thing. And people would say, well, it's a university and your responsibility is not to make sure your students get a job, but get a good education. Well, that's partially true. But it's also your responsibility to get them a job, to put them in a situation where they have a reasonable prospect to get employment from all this effort that they're going to put in. So I had always thought that, we had always thought that in the program. We said, now we have to produce employable students.
And that is true even today.
What I see in the Q&A, I've got, maybe I can package them together. Just one more question to lay on the table, but also maybe to hand it back, Dean, in looking at the clock. But there was a question that sort of is about the inside baseball and the relationship with the state. So, how did the college get its necessary pillars passed, or how did you and Bill Gaither and others get through the academic senate process, or to institute yourselves and with the curriculum and things? The second part of that question is, what kind of relationship did the college need to have or forge with the state of Delaware as they were forming?
Well, for the sort of the internal politics of the institution, we were blessed, again, as one of these things. We were really blessed by having joint appointments. We had 40 or 50 faculty the first or second year of the College of Marine Studies because other faculty were drawn to interest themselves in the activities of the College of Marine Studies. They were all on board with helping us. So on the academic side, I won't say we didn't have any problems. We certainly had some people who, like as I said earlier, whose hair was on fire, that we were taking away all their resources and so on, and competing with them for their students and all. But by and large, but that was a very minor problem, it turned out. I could never have predicted that. I never anticipated that it would be a problem. I said, oh, it's an institution, it's a higher learning, they're all good people, their self-interest is secondary to anything else. They're all pie in the sky people. Well, they weren't. But we had enough of them, so I'll say on our side, or interested in us, that very quickly dissipated and internally. Now, so far as the state of Delaware was concerned and its politics were concerned, that was Bill Gaither's principal job. And he took that as a challenge that he just loved. He wined and dined and met with our state legislatures. He created all kinds of opportunities for them to see what marine studies was doing, all kinds of opportunities for commercial fishermen and other people within the state to laud the research activities that were going on in the College of Marine Studies. And he never had a problem. And principally, above that all, he had the absolute full support of Archibald, the president of the university. Absolute support. So that when Bill Gaither said, well, we have this old fishing vessel down here, we called it a dragger, that we'd been an old wooden fishing vessel down here. We need a modern research vessel.
Well, very, very good.
What does that cost? Well, it's going to cost $5 million. The money will be there tomorrow.
Wow.
I mean, it was amazing.
That is amazing.
Well, good. Dean, I'm going to pass it back to you. I think we've got a minute or two to finish up, but do you have anything you want to close with? I know we want to let people know that there's 2 more of these, among other events that'll be coming around with the 50th anniversary celebration. I do want to thank Jen Biddle, Tracy DeLiberty, Sue McGeary, and distinguished alum Evelyn Marmeyer, who are also on this 50th anniversary committee that you mentioned earlier on. But let me pass it back to you, Dee.
Yes. So thank you, and thank you to the participants for staying with us. I hope you have enjoyed these discussions. I have certainly learned a whole lot about how this college came to be, and totally amazed by the vision that Bill Gaither's, that you and Bill Gaither's had for forming this college and what it has turned out to be. So this was a beautiful dream that actually came true. And we hope to continue to build on your legacy and of course, the legacy of all the other things that came after you. That's my hope and aspiration, that we'll continue to build this college to make it the greatest college that you guys dreamed it would be. So thank you so much for spending your this last hour with us. And for the participants, please, we hope to see you back next week when I sit down with Dr. Caroline Thorgood, who was the second dean and that succeeded Bill Gaither. So see you next week, and thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Biggs.
And good night, everybody.